All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope you had a nice lunch. We're gonna start the tool demo portion of today. Up first is Varya from SUNY Cortland, one of the facilitators, and she's gonna be talking about Microsoft Teams.
Hi everybody. So I'm gonna talk about Microsoft Teams. So I'm Varya, IT project manager at SUNY Cortland since June 2018. And I graduated from Oneonta. So at Oneonta, I graduated with a degree in art and international studies. Oh, that's just you. Saw the chat come in and I thought somebody had a question already. Yeah, so I was in the desktop support team at Oneonta, and then I graduated in December 2013. And then I had one job in the private sector, and then I found my way back to SUNY. And then eventually worked my way up into an IT project manager role. So at SUNY Cortland, for the most part, our directors handle their own projects. Where I really come into play is when projects are touching more than one department within our IT division. Give you a little bit of idea of what I do. So currently at SUNY Cortland, there's not any kind of agreed upon tool or method, which presents some challenges, and a little comforted knowing that I'm not the only one with that challenge. So some people are using Excel, some people are using Teams, some people like our system admin and web services group are using Azure boards, which Josh will be talking about a little bit later, a few other things that I'm sure he'd be willing to touch upon. But basically, there's not a lot of consistency. So if that's you, then I feel you. So we recently did a demo for ServiceNow and Team Dynamics because we are looking for some project management consistency and tools. So hopefully, I think we're going to go Team Dynamics, but don't quote me on that because nothing's official. And that's pretty excited. But to be clear that, project management wasn't the only reason we started looking for something else. We're also looking for ticketing, and we're also looking for knowledge base. So, but project management was one of the three driving forces behind looking for something else. Just to give you a little bit of background, what's going on at Cortland. So I use a couple of different things in my everyday life: Microsoft Teams, Excel, HelpSpot, which is our current ticketing system, and I do use a little bit of Microsoft Project. I'm not super good at it. I'd like to be better, but from what I've heard from other people, I'm not the only one who feels that way. They're just not they use it, but they're not confident enough to have people watch over their shoulder while they use it. And then pretty much anything else that I need to get the job done. So that's, just an idea of what I've been using to do my job. But so I've been find myself relying more and more on Microsoft Teams more than these other tools for a couple of different reasons. So I started using it as kind of a replacement for Skype for Business. And then I figured out that it does a lot more than that. So I started putting in some smaller projects. So for example, we did a security brochure. So I had a few people put into a team, and then we worked on that brochure. We collaborated, and we did conversions and talked about deadlines and costs, and we did it all within the team. And that seemed to work really well. So I've done that for a few other projects that I've worked on. I was talking about earlier how I've been managing one big project, which is our Duo two-factor authentication rollout, but I've broken it down into smaller projects. And a couple of those smaller projects are in Teams. So our rollout for students is in Teams. And then I've also broken out one team specifically for tokens. We'll look at a little bit at that later. So, and I've been starting to work on, as I've started to use it more and more, I've been trying to standardize the way that I use it. I don't like to be haphazard, but you gotta get in, get your hands dirty before you figure out what works and what doesn't. Now I use Teams every day, whether it's talking to somebody or updating something on a project. It's just part of my everyday life. So I'm still working on ways to use it more efficiently. So I know that there's a lot of apps that you can pull into Teams. So, you know, there's Trello, there's Flow, there's Azure DevOps. So I haven't experimented too much with adding other apps in, but that is something that I'm going to be looking at as I move forward. And I've definitely started using Teams as like a replacement for OneDrive storage. I don't think I'm alone in this, but I'm not the biggest fan of OneDrive because a lot of the times I just hurt Chris's feelings. Broke my heart. It just seems clunky to use, and I think Teams, the file storage in there is sufficient for the teams that I put together, and seems to be less confusing to use, and there's less problems with things syncing and saving and copying over. So in my experience, I've been happy to switch over to Teams for file storage on different projects. Plus, you get to use everything else in Teams for that project, rather than just using OneDrive for file storage and then trying to use it for everything else. Let's see. So a few of the pros. I like that I can keep all the project documents in the same place. It's been super helpful. There's a chat that links up with each team, so you can discuss problems as they're happening. That was super helpful with our COA rollout to students as we came up with different things. We anticipated a lot of the problems, but there were little one-off problems that we were able to discuss within the chat and figure out solutions for and plan for them, or at least come up with a temporary solution so we can talk about it more. Yep, chats are part of the team and part of the project now, so I like that. I like that it can be transparent to stakeholders and to your sponsors, so you can add them in and then they can set up their notifications. So if they want to know every single little thing going on, then they're welcome to do so. If they want to turn off notifications and just check on it when they feel like it, they can do that too. And as I was talking about earlier, SUNY Cortland hasn't said Microsoft Teams is the end-all be-all. So part of what I've been working on is agreeing with my sponsor and stakeholder how we're going to communicate, and agreeing that Teams is going to be the thing I'm going to use. So the work in progress. And I do like that Teams is fairly easy to navigate for people who have never used Teams. So if you stumble in there for the first time, you can kind of poke around and figure out what's going on. So great for sponsors who don't get into the nitty-gritty very often. I've found it's really helpful to keep track of changes. So back to that duo rollout for students, as things have come up, we've had little changes. I mean, it's all recorded in the chat. I do try to keep a log of that in like an Excel file, so we know we're logging the problems and as they happen and what changes we're making for them. But you know, we're all human, so I don't always put them all into that file. So having somewhere I can go back to and say, oh, did I record this? Did I record this? It's all in the same chat. You can have online meetings, although we are not geographically challenged at SUNY Cortland, so we tend to meet in person. Though I imagine during the winter we might do more online meetings because we're not all in the same building. You can record those meetings and you can save them. A little slightly clunky, to be honest. So you can, it's not the starting of the meeting that's hard. It's the so once you record it, then you have to go into Microsoft Stream, create a channel, and then you can go back into your team and like create a stream channel, and then you have to make sure that that meeting recording is in the stream channel. So that's a little clunky and takes a little getting used to. But I haven't really felt the need to do too much of that. We did record one online meeting because somebody wasn't there, and I thought maybe they might want to go back and look at it. I think Teams is better at conveying emotion. One of the things I find funny is that there's a lot of people at our school who are so excited that you can send gifts. So that it sounds funny, but it's super helpful because through a lot of different tools, you miss the emotion and the human interaction. So if you're able to send a GIF or a different emoticon or whatever, I mean, it adds a little bit of sense of humor, or kind of gives people an idea of what you're thinking and where you're at, emotionally, and so you tend to forgive people a little bit more when you're reminded that they're human. So I'd like, even though it's a piece of technology, you don't totally lose the human side of it. So that's a pro for me. The other thing I like is that you can tag individuals. So if you are not somebody who's constantly looking at a team, I can tag somebody who I need for a project in that team, and then they'll receive a notification. They can come in and take a look. So kind of nice. A few cons, and things I've had to compensate for. So there's not really any insight into your resources, so you don't know how they're being used. You don't know if you're demanding too much of them, or how much time the task is going to take. So you don't really have a good idea of how much you're demanding of one group or one person, or So I've spent a lot of time trying to meet with people and directors and get a really good kind of reality check of what's going on, so that I'm not putting too much on one resource. So that takes a lot of time, and wouldn't it be nice if I could just look at a lovely graph and say, okay, Jim's overworked this week, I can assign this to somebody else who can perform the same skill. So there's no ties to the ticketing system, or at least our ticketing system. One of the things that I think I like about Team Dynamics, if that's the route we go to, is that you can have a ticketing system, like you can have tickets within your project. So anything to do with, say, Duo could show up in my little dashboard, supposedly. And that, for this particular project, I have a filter set up and I can go look at it. But it's kind of been piecemealed together by myself. So not totally ideal. And would it be nice if we had one tool that gave me the ticketing overview plus resources plus communication. So I've had a few problems editing files within Teams. I mean, most of the time it works. What you have to do is launch the app, so Word or Excel, and then edit them, rather than try to edit them within Teams, because then sometimes it doesn't save right, or it acts a little clunky. So a little bit like OneDrive. Sorry. The video conferencing quality is just okay. I mean, I did one yesterday with 2 coworkers, and a little laggy. I mean, I could hear them fine, but the video was a little off. So especially since I've done Zoom video conferencing with Chris and Krista, I can definitely tell the difference between the 2 products. Zoom seems to give you a little bit better video quality. So, I mean, if that's something that really matters to you, heads up, it really is just okay. So if you're gonna go Microsoft Teams, I definitely would say use it with people who are enthusiastic about using it, or using different apps. So on my campus, that's been our system admins, a few of our directors. It's really been about, our help desk has been pretty enthusiastic about it. We've had a few people that I've tried to engage them in Microsoft Teams. Doesn't seem to totally work. They don't take to it as well. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's probably because the rest of their department isn't on it. So give it time. Let's see if we can convert. And I'd also say that if you're interested in doing it, start with a smaller project or simpler project. That the brochure that I did was kind of perfect for it because it was pretty straightforward, and it gave me a chance to get used to Microsoft Teams before I went, tackled something a bit bigger. And actually, I'm going to jump out of here. I just want to show you a little bit of Teams itself because I've been talking all sorts of stuff and not showing you Teams. So the security brochure I was talking about. Oh no, hold on.
You can change your share your desktop instead.
Yep.
There we go.
Now we're cooking. So the security brochure was a great one to start with. So we were able to do things like, pin our brochure to one of the tabs. We were able to talk about content areas for it, put it in different comments, have a little conversation. Apparently I can type something in. Maybe we have too many of those. Or not. Okay. Are you able to save files? We're able to save, design examples of things we liked, drafts of the brochure, costs. So that worked out pretty well. It was pretty straightforward. We were able to chat about it, and it's all kind of saved in this neat little team, and I can go back and look at it whenever I want. I had mentioned the Duo tokens. This one we have ended up using more as a chat than a sharing of information. The challenge with our tokens was some departments want them, some don't, and some need training and some don't. And so we found that we had a challenge of communication, whereas I knew what was going on, but they didn't. So they'd receive an order and they weren't really sure whether they needed to do anything other than deliver it. So as I work with the departments, I just kind of give our two desktop support people a heads up what was going on. They could stay on top of it. Our Duo rollout for students has been a big one. This is what I was talking about with the meeting recordings. So this was the one meeting that we recorded. Again, we haven't found much of a need to actually record meetings, but that is the one that we did. And if we did more, we could just put them all into the same thing. We were able to pin our project plan to it so we could refer back to it. Is it downloaded? There it is. Put all our project files, communication plans, problem logs, etc. And then in our conversations, we were able to discuss problems as they happened. So it is any project, well, any kind of technology, there's always that random thing that comes up that you didn't expect. Like somebody used Mozilla Thunderbird, and that wasn't working with Duo, and we had never thought that would ever come up. So there's things like that.
Get a request when you go back. Can you show the con slide again?
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
See if, Irene, is there something specific you want to know about from the con slide?
Well, I was just writing the different bullet points down and I didn't get to write them all down.
Oh, sure. We're also going to send the presentations out, I promise.
Yeah.
Oh, you are going to send them out? Okay.
No, we are. We're going to send them
Okay.
out in PDF form so you'll get
All
it.
right. Then I don't need to write anything down then. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions before we go on?
Yes.
You had talked about keeping track of changes in a log
Yes.
in Teams. Could you show us that, please?
So what I meant by that, And it really changes, it's really ended up being more problems and risk.
Okay, so your file structure is similar to what if you're on SharePoint now, or if you're not on SharePoint,
It looks
yeah,
just like
it
SharePoint.
looks like SharePoint. Kind of people are used to that behavior, right? Or if you're, in our case, we use Confluence with a similar file structure for your files, but everything is under one folder.
Yeah.
And the folder is the project.
So
Right.
this is what you're talking about, you're having problems modifying it in, so when you
Yeah.
go up instead of hitting edit, it's like you hit the arrow next to it, it will open up.
And you
a
can
desktop app.
and
Yeah.
it seems to work just fine. And I should mention that Teams seems to work just fine within the web browser too. You don't necessarily have to download the app. Although I like having the app on my desktop personally, but to each their own. But yeah, no, I've had better success editing it in the desktop app rather than directly inside of Teams. Yeah, for
That's a
sure.
known product with Microsoft products.
Yeah. You can't edit that Microsoft file inside of a Microsoft project. You have to open it in the other Microsoft file.
That's
Yeah.
something that's always been a little clunky.
Yeah. But this is actually a template that I had come up with. I have a few templates that I've worked on during my time at Cortland, and this is one of them. I come up with a legend about what means what. So in theory, anybody could add a risk or a problem and be able to figure out, we'd all be able to communicate it consistently. But we did all of this before we actually started rolling out to students. We were also able to plan who we were going to go talk to on campus through Teams and through some meetings, in-person meetings. And actually, I was playing around with this yesterday. You can actually open it in SharePoint, and it looks like OneDrive to me, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it wasn't.
It's just like OneDrive. That's all OneDrive
Or
is,
Yeah.
SharePoint.
Or Dropbox.
Yeah.
Same thing.
It wasn't anything special, so I never clicked on that again. So there's that.
So I have a question. If you wanted something that looked more like a waterfall schedule with Teams,
Yeah.
you would either like embed a project file in here
Yeah.
or an Excel file that showed that sort of thing.
Yeah. So
There's not any
games.
inherent ability in here.
Not that I found. Like I said, there are some apps. Oh, 1 second, Tina. Yeah, there are some apps. So there's Planner and then there's Excel. So I mean, yeah, you there might be another way that I haven't found yet, but for the most part, writing up an app that if you have it in Excel, that you can just add it as a tab.
A little more manual.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. So if this is the only thing you have, it's kind of there's quite a bit of flexibility with it. But it looked like
It covers most of the bases, though.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It really does.
It does.
It's not overkill for people who aren't in here all the time.
It's very simplistic,
It seems like
as in like easy to use.
yeah, like a friendly tool for someone who isn't an actual project manager all the time. If that's just part of your job, this might be a good fit for you. It seemed like Tina had a question. I don't want to forget about her.
Thanks. I just wanted to know
Something
if
about someone.
Teams is extra. You know how we have like a Microsoft contract for all the other Office and project and other file or applications. Is Teams considered separate? Do you have to buy it separately?
I don't
No,
think so.
no,
No.
it's part of 365.
Yeah.
Okay.
365.
Got it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So that's definitely something you'd want to talk to your department that
Yeah.
does your provision,
Yeah.
get- and talk to them and see, and make sure it's part of your Office 365 contract.
This is what we're-
Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else?
Any other questions? Before we move on?
Oh, doesn't want to. There it is. Okay. I still see a use for Teams, even if we were to implement ServiceNow or Team Dynamics, just because it's that human element I was talking about. I really appreciate it for that. And it's also good for like in the moment planning. There's a lot of conversations where you have in Teams that you don't necessarily want published within a ticketing system or a formal project in something like Team Dynamics. So it's a nice casual environment to get some of that taken care of. So, and I would also, for me personally, I'm looking at, future of Microsoft Teams for myself, and hopefully on my campus is that we can look at some more standardization, a little bit more governance, start working on naming conventions, retention, archiving, et cetera. One of the problems I saw with OneDrive is that everybody was excited to use it, and everybody started creating OneDrive groups, and now we've got like a whole bunch of OneDrive groups that we don't need anymore, and we don't really have a good place to put them. We don't want to delete them, but we don't, we don't need to see them every day. That's a whole project within itself. That's pretty much it. And I finished right at a half hour, so. Woo.
Any other questions or anything else you guys would like to see in Teams? We can have Varya show us.
Just have a comment. When we were getting started with Teams and trying to figure out how much we were going to use it or not for projects, we asked our librarians on the campus, how would you structure this type of content?
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Because they're really good at it, and we weren't. So they did help us to think through simplistically how to organize.
There might be something maybe the instructional designer would be able to help you too, somebody who has a little bit of background on that, thinking about that sort of thing.
So you mean a chat private like within a team, or do you mean, well, because so I also have chats with people one-on-one or in small groups, and ignore this goofy kid. That's the human aspect. Okay, yeah, so if it's trying to keep something private, one-on-one, just talk to them one-on-one, but with Teams, I don't know if there's actually a way to keep parts of this private and parts of it public. I think it's kind of all or nothing.
It's all or
In the next couple of weeks, Teams is releasing the ability to have private channels within the team. So you can have channels that are public and channels that will be private. They haven't said exactly when, but they announced it at Microsoft Ignite last week.
Nice.
But if someone's in that channel, it's all
To that
people in
whole
the
channel.
channel. So again, if you really want the one-on-one, then you want to go to the chat.
And I will also mention that the calendar piece of this is a little clunky. I'll kind of show you what I mean if we went to next week. I've found it difficult to, there are a lot of similarities between this and Outlook, but personally, Outlook is just easier. So I usually end up going through Outlook.
That's what I do too.
Yeah.
I schedule the meeting in Outlook and it just populates in the Teams calendar.
The only nice reason you'd really want to go through here, though, is if you wanted it to be on one of your team channels.
Right.
But honestly, I just go through and invite everybody in Outlook.
You also get, by making it a Teams meeting, it gives you like that video connect link in the invitation automatically if you're going to video chat.
Right.
And I think I saw Tina raise her hand.
No, Tina has her hand raised and Terry has another question.
Oh.
So Terry says, so if you're in a chat, you and the person you're chatting with are the only ones that can see, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yep.
Unless somebody walks in and looks over your shoulder. Yeah.
You can also call them if you're enabled.
Although,
You would be.
yeah. Although what I learned recently, and I had never really had an occasion to call anybody until recently, I had called our help desk manager using this, and he didn't realize I was calling him until after the fact. He was like, "Oh, I have a missed call," and I hadn't warned him at all. So apparently, it's not super evident that somebody's calling you. I don't know if anybody's had any more
If
experience
they don't
with that.
have the Teams app, and it's not running, it just sends them a notification later.
Well, we were chatting while we were doing it.
That's weird. You should have got like it takes up my whole screen when Steve does the screen.
Oh, okay.
It says Steve Cook is calling.
I'm not the authority on that. Yeah.
Tina, go ahead and answer your question.
I was
Sorry,
wondering,
Sorry.
that's right. We're a Gmail house, so I was wondering if anybody has used Teams and not used Outlook, and do you have problems? Does it integrate? But if you guys are using Outlook, then you wouldn't be able to answer that.
No, but I did go to a session.
I think we're all Microsoft houses, aren't we?
Yeah,
I think Geneseo might.
I went to a
We
session.
use Teams and we use GroupWise.
Or you a group, yeah, Upstate has group wise.
There's an absolute disconnect.
Okay.
There was
I
a
would imagine.
Yeah, presentation this week about Microsoft Teams, and I'm trying to remember the names of the people. I think they work a lot with Microsoft. They were right before our presentation, but they were talking about how there is a way to link in Gmail, and I kind of went, well, I'm not a Gmail campus, so I don't.
We can get that answer.
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
I can tell you, campus that did the presentation on Teams.
I don't know if it's any good.
We're moving to 365, so nobody cares right now that we have a disconnect.
I get it. I understand. If we end up using it, I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, we did, definitely let us know.
So there's access to Gmail School.
Oh, see, I think Nick's was
Very
very,
Geneseo.
it was an iTech presentation, so Microsoft Teams, enabling collaboration and communication for faculty, staff, and students. We'll have to track that down.
Yeah.
I don't know who presented it. Hold on.
They seem like almost
In the iTech
Microsoft
section, it says
affiliated.
iTech.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were probably Microsoft or maybe. They had to be categorized as iTech otherwise. they're not
And then maybe it was
campus, so-
Microsoft itself.
They claim it works. So
That's
that's all I got.
I think it might have been Dave
That was the name.
from Microsoft.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, Nick, let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear that, because that's definitely information we can pass on to other people. So, okay. Any other questions?
And I just want to throw in, just as kind of a fun fact, our instructional designers have started kind of promoting Teams with their faculty, and they seem to like it quite a bit. So when they go to create a new team, there's like a classroom option, like you've got different options and they all do different things. I mean, I almost always do the staff one because I am staff. But I assume if a student, there's more than one level. I mean, I focus mostly on one level here, but there might be other uses for it other than what I just showed you.
Well, thank you, Varya. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Very good.
All right. So we're going to take a 5-minute break.